Hello everybody. I was going to try to do this live and then I realized when I was trying to practice that my nerves were going to get the best of me and there'd be no way I'd get through all this. So this topic is about aging resistance bands and nothing lasts forever, and that includes your exercise equipment. So think about like rubber bands you have just around the house or your office. So, different ones, just even from the moment you buy them, they have a different amount of strength and resistance. And like this rubber band feels like it's just a better rubber band. This one was cheaper. It feels a little drier. It feels like it could snap more easily. And it's just a different band. So depending on what you're buying and the quality of it, how you store it, where you keep it, whether it's in the sun or not, all these things are going to affect the life of your resistance bands. Really a lot of other equipment too, but I'll talk about some of the other equipment in a separate video. So what are some of the good things about resistance bands? Well, they provide a constant change in how your body is having to keep reassessing, recalibrating what you're doing, because the resistance is constantly changing. It forces your nervous system to stay active, and your brain and body are having to figure out together how to keep readjusting for that constant change in the resistance. And really, that's the same thing with the Pilates springs. It's very similar. So the goodness. All right, let's say I have a long band. Even when I'm not live, I still cannot keep my brain together. This is a pretty long band, and this is a black TheraBand, which is one of the heavier resistances. It's probably about 6 feet long. I usually cut them to about 6 feet when I buy a big roll. And let's say I'm using this under my feet, and I'm going to get a little assistance with it to control a roll up, something like that. So the less resistance I have, like I back my hands out here, I've got less help, and the more resistance I have more help. But sometimes having a little more help enables you to take the time to go even deeper into your abdominal connection or your articulation through your spine, how much you can fold your ribs in and feel that upper ab connection. So if I go to a heavier band, this is a much heavier band, I've got a lot more help. And even if I don't reach down as far, I've got more help right off the bat for how I'm using that. How far you stretch a band is also just a safety factor. So if I am using something like this band and I'm standing on it, say in the middle, and then I do some reaches, I'm only stretching it so far, but if I and I'll sit down to show, but let's say I'm standing and I go for a really big stretch and I take that band up and over. Well, how long was the band to begin with? If I was starting with like a little 3-foot band, I think I definitely wouldn't want to try that because I'd be stretching it out too far. And then there's also just safety factors like, do you have a good grip on it? You can buy things like handles to put on your bands and tubing, but even then you want to be careful that you installed it well. And so like these ones, they come with this little loop and kind of sliding buckle thing. And so you can put that band through there and kind of lock it in, but like I would want to make sure there's a good amount, little bit at least, sticking out the other side, that I can monitor that for slippage. Of course, you know, things like this, they're going to come with some instructions that encourage you to do that, but then you also want to keep inspecting your own equipment. Now, if I've got something like a loop band, and with any of these bands, they're just going to get mushy over time. You may also see that they get points of wear and tear. I throw out a lot of bands, and I try to keep monitoring them. So depending on what the original weight was, and we've got lots of kinds here from lots of people, and sometimes it's just kind of what was at the bottom of a stack in a bin, and then I'll throw some out and I'll reshuffle what's to the top. You know, you want to look for flaws. Also, just, does it go back to its original shape? Like if it's to the point where it's not going all the way back to its shape, you definitely should have thrown that away. People ask what kind of band to buy, what weight band to buy. Well, it might depend on what you're doing with it and the angle that you're working at, how you're working against gravity, and what your body can handle. I think a lot of times for people at home, you know, if you're in relatively good shape, you might be better off buying like a variety pack of bands where you get several different densities and weight loads, and then you can experiment as you go. Sometimes doing more reps with a lighter weight band versus fewer reps with a heavier weight band, things like that. There's also just the issue of, have you accidentally done something to damage your band? So let's say I was using a pretty heavy band and I accidentally let go of it and it snapped at something, or it caught on something. Sometimes people also, they'll hook bands around like legs of furniture and stuff, and it's like, well, were there points on that leg that might have put extra stress on it? Like a round leg of something is probably going to put less stress at different points in the band. But even with something like the Pilates springs, you know, if somebody accidentally lets go of one, it can be damaged. And like I happen to have a chair spring here where you can still see, I think you can probably see it on the video, the kink in this spring. So like we just have to go ahead and replace it, even if it didn't seem like it was in the life cycle of when we should have had to replace it. And you know, over my time as a studio owner, I've spent thousands and thousands of dollars on springs, and you just have to do it. So in this instance, it may be that there were a couple of times where somebody accidentally let go of the pedal on the chair. If it snaps back with a lot of force, that can cause this to happen. Sometimes it just takes one time for that to happen. It just depends on the force and the angle and how things hit. A long time ago, I once had a client who accidentally let go of standing arm springs, and I think she just lost track. Her mind wandered, I think. And those springs snapped back so fast with so much force that actually the stem inside the spring So you can probably maybe see how inside there's a kind of a long stem from this that goes down inside. Those stems were sticking out through the spring. So it was really a very scary moment, and not one that I want to repeat around here. Now, if you, don't leave your TheraBand in your car. Don't leave it in the sun. Any kind of resistance bands, any kind of tubing. Well, my phone cut me off. Evidently, I didn't have enough storage left. So, yeah, be careful about how you store your equipment. Avoid the sun and high heat. And just remember that really any band can break. Most anything can break. If it has enough force and tension on it and it's been used in a way that it wasn't intended for. So you overly stretch any band, no matter how new it is, and it's going to break. Now, some of the ratios I've seen before have suggested that you shouldn't stretch a band more than 2.5 times its length. But I think that's really going to depend on the weight of the band, the quality of the band. You need to check out what the manufacturer's recommendations are, and you need to keep monitoring the wear and tear of the band. Really, this is just the same with your body. If you overstretch muscles, ligaments, and tendons, they break and get damaged. So, what's appropriate at a particular time for whatever it is in the physical world. I think sometimes people just don't want to spend money on exercise equipment because they resent spending money on exercise equipment. But it's so important to make sure that you are keeping things functional and safe, that you don't want to get hurt. A heavier band is going to cost more. A higher quality band is going to cost more. Is it a reputable company? Are you using it in an appropriate way? You may also want to look at whether you're buying latex bands or non-latex bands, and how you're using them, how you use the width and length of them. Like this is a non-latex band, but it's not very wide. And it used to be that you couldn't get wide ones that are non-latex. Now I just discovered recently that now you can order some wider ones, and I'm about to do that. But like one of the things I like about some of the wider bands is like being able to do other kinds of foot exercises where like I can put my foot in the band lengthwise and give myself resistance. And that is very hard to do with a thinner band. So you have to figure out what all you want to do with it and what is best for you. I did also want to say that I have actually been in other gyms and workout facilities and even physical therapy clinics where I saw bands and balls that were still being used that should have been thrown away. And so, who wants to get hurt? It could be that it hadn't been brought to anybody's attention, but if you are handed something in a PT clinic that you question just the integrity of the band that you're being asked to use, bring it to somebody's attention because you don't want to get hurt. And I think also, just remember too that even sometimes a brand new piece of equipment might have a flaw in it. So just keep monitoring and looking and paying attention. There are a lot of great benefits to resistance bands, and a lot of studies have even shown that they're really helpful with strengthening ligaments and tendons, and they also help a lot with the eccentric control phase of an exercise, or how you work on deceleration. And that's one of the advantages to the Pilates springs too on the equipment. So they're really wonderful, but they all have their own life cycle, and you just have to keep paying attention to all of that. Thanks.